So we're talking today about the fears and anxiety about returning to our new normal lives. We're not going to be returning to our new normal lives as we knew them before the start of this pandemic, and things are going to be new. And that can be anxiety and fear generating. So we're going to discuss a little bit about the anxiety and fears and why we are anxious and fearful, and why it's actually a good thing to be anxious. I hope everybody can hear me and see okay. And if not, please do unmute yourselves. Hi, it is being recorded. It is being recorded, and it will be put up amongst other places on my Facebook page. But please do interrupt me if you can't hear or see well. I'm just going to switch off my phone so that we'll have less interference. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about why we feel fearful, why we have anxiety, and about returning to what we've been waiting to do. We've been waiting to return to our normal routines. And then we're going to discuss tools for lowering anxiety, positive thinking, relaxation, and emotional regulation. So I really hope that you'll come out from today with some tools that you can start implementing straight away. Also, at the end of this hour, the final slide will be a lot of extra material, books, YouTubes, and apps, different resources that can be useful for you in order to delve deeper into what we're going to be talking about today. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a psychologist. I work in the public sector for 20 years, and I also work heading a private selective mutism treatment center. I came back from China 1 minute before the corona hit us. My main area of expertise is anxiety disorders and mainly selective mutism. So this is why I'm talking about anxiety today. What are we going to talk about today? Well, hold on, let me just mute everybody. So we're going to be starting off by talking about certainty versus uncertainty. We need a degree of certainty. We all know about that. We also need a degree of uncertainty, and what's happened just now with that balance between certainty and uncertainty. Then we're going to talk about the routine of social isolation that we actually entered into. We entered into a kind of routine. And what's difficult about returning to our normal routine? What makes us scared? We're going to talk about the importance of flexibility and self-compassion. And then we're going to move on, and hopefully that will be the main part of this hour, will be tools. The first set of tools are focused on what are we thinking, how our thoughts affect our anxiety. Then the second lot of tools will be what are we feeling, how our feelings can be moderated. The third set of tools will be relaxation and meditation. The fourth will be mindfulness. And then the fifth part of the tools section will be what we do, what we can do in order to moderate our anxiety before and during events. And then the final slide will be a lot of really useful future resources. That's a free meditation course, some YouTube videos, books and apps that I hope you're going to find useful. So let's jump right in. Now, first of all, I'd like you to take a paper and a pen. And if you thought I was going to be doing all the work, then think again. I would like you to take paper and pen. And of course, nobody is obliged to share your thoughts at the end. But in order for us to work on tools, I would like you just to write down some thoughts that go through your mind when you're thinking about returning to your normal routine. So just take 30 seconds, write a few thoughts that go through your mind when you think about returning to your normal routine. what fearful thoughts, what happy thoughts, what neutral thoughts. And then we're going to see when we come to work on the tools, how these tools perhaps could help you with these thoughts that you're having. So I'm going to start off with certainty versus uncertainty. Now, this is borrowed from NLP. There are so many different fields of coaching and therapy, and the fields we're going to be borrowing from on the whole today will be cognitive behavioral therapy, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. These are the traditional ways, over the last 10, 15 years, of dealing with anxieties. We're going to talk about for a few tools from DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. And we're going to, of course, do some mindfulness-based stress reduction. But this I'm starting off by borrowing from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Now, NLP has got this idea of certainty versus uncertainty, that in our lives we need a balance between certainty and uncertainty. And certainty is what we had until this corona pandemic broke out, that we basically kind of knew what to expect from each day. We knew we were going out to work, we were going to be picking up our kids from school, what we would prepare for supper, when we'd go to bed, when we'd get up in the morning. And then we also needed uncertainty. We need uncertainty in order to have excitement in our lives, to have some kind of change. Otherwise, we would be so bored. So we also need some excitement in our lives. And according to NLP, this is a need, both for certainty and uncertainty, and the balance needs to be right. What happened when this pandemic broke out is we had the carpet pulled from under our feet, that all of our certainty just kind of dissolved into thin air. We didn't know whether our kids would be going to school, whether we'll be working, health, how will we get through this health-wise? How will our loved ones get through this health-wise? How will our job be waiting for us? Will we be okay financially? There is so much uncertainty where we had certainty. And we had plenty of uncertainty. So kind of the balance was, the equilibrium was disturbed. But then we kind of got into this routine, and it's amazing what people can get used to. And we got into the routine. Perhaps some of you continued going out to work, but most of us stayed at home, and we changed pajamas once a day, and we had a different kind of certainty, that when we were at home and we were with our kids and we were perhaps working from home, but we kind of regained that balance. And now, as we're going back to the real world in a very large strides, now we're getting back to a different kind of uncertainty of what awaits us. And these changes in the balance between certainty and uncertainty can be quite difficult to handle. We had a new routine of social isolation, which I hear from so many parents, and some of them are here, that actually there were lots of positive experience. And perhaps once we got used to what is happening with us, then we actually had, a lot of people had a lot of positive experiences. They had more quality time with their family. They had less pressure. There was a general slowing down. We were moving so fast. And most of us had a slowing down during this new routine of social isolation. There was a lot of room for creativity. We had to invent games for our kids and occupations and things to keep us busy. And my grandson said to me at one point that at the beginning of the lockdown, he was really bored, but then he found all kinds of interesting things that he could do at home. So it's actually known that we need a degree of boredom in order to let our fertile imaginations be productive. When we're too fully occupied, then we can have then we don't have enough room for creativity. We're on the go all the time. Playing, lying down on the rug in the living room and playing with your kids. That was such a rare a commodity for so many people. Those of us who live near nature, we could enjoy nature for walks or even the view. Entertainments, some of us had a bit too much kind of Netflix type of entertainment, but we could enjoy things that we didn't have time to enjoy previously. Some people managed to do sport. I did more sport than I think I've ever done in my life. We thought about priorities. I think that I hear from most people however they experienced the new routine of social isolation, we thought about priorities. What we were usually so busy doing, we weren't doing. And so we had time to think, to consider, and to plan. And here I would like to recommend a book I'm going to show you on the final slide, which is by Omer, which is about a parent as a leader. If we were CEOs of huge concerns, huge companies, we would constantly be reassessing what's gone well, what's gone poorly, what could we do better, what are we planning for the upcoming time. And as parents, sometimes we just don't have the time to do that. We're so busy with the daily sandwiches, homework, dropping kids off, picking them up. And really, our families are our most important endeavor in life. And when we take time to see ourselves as leaders of our families, to really think, plan, if we've got that out of this slowing down period and we can regroup our priorities and become the leaders of our families, then to a greater degree, then that will be a great gain. So here I've got to share with you my very favorite metaphor, just briefly. Some of you will have heard it, who've heard me before. The dandelion child and the orchid child, originally from David Dobbs. And I found that we are all orchid children. We are all orchid children. The dandelion child the seeds can be sown anywhere. They can fly to a field which doesn't have much water, doesn't have much sun, and they'll grow. And the orchid child needs just the right amount of water, just the right amount of sun in order to grow and flourish. But when the orchid child flourishes, he is the most beautiful flower ever. And truly, I think we all need that custom-made environment. And putting everybody into the same, every kind of peg, every shaped peg into the same socket, as I think many schools have been doing, as a society has been done, not to see individual differences. I think we pay a very heavy price for that. So I think we've all learned more about our orchid children and our orchid selves and what we need in order to flourish and bloom. So what difficulties have there been during lockdown and social isolation? And there have been many, many difficulties. Firstly, there was concern for health. There was concern for our health, for how are we going to come out of this? How are our loved ones going to come out of this? And this is, has been a real concern, and unfortunately many people have suffered. There's the concern for livelihood. How are we going to get back to how we were? Except for, of course, some people like Zoom and supermarket online deliveries, and some people have done really well. Lack of social support, where previously we could go out and chat with a friend, chat with our co-workers, and we were confined to our families. And boredom, which is a double-edged sword. As I said, it can be really fabulous, and it can be hard to deal with the boredom. We've had to have multiple and conflicting roles: teacher, parent, police, keeping the law and order, cleaner, entertainer, cook, and often parents have become general punching bags also, hopefully not too literally, but that has also been the case. And there apart from that, and anybody who is interested, there's a wonderful book by Carol Gilligan about women's flexibility, how they need to become so flexible with their roles in different stages of life, where they are mothers and bread earners, and they're pregnant and not pregnant, and they have a full home and an empty home. And the same is true of men in different ways, although there's a lot of crossover nowadays. So we've all had to change our roles and become very flexible. And for those of us who flexibility is not our strong point, that has been hard. The lack of certainty, as I said, about the future, and the lack of control. I think many of us had an illusion of great control, and then we were shown very clearly that we are not the ones who are really in control here, and we've got to sometimes just go with the flow and try and make lemonade out of lemons. So there are pre-existing problems became worse, and of course families where there was violence, where there was abuse, that was an absolutely unbearable situation. But even lesser situations, like siblings who don't get along, there have been extreme blow-ups. And I think one of the cases of real difficulty were teens who some teens had a wonderful time, and many teens just found it too constricting, too confining, because it was inappropriate for their developmental stage to be alone with their parents. Their stage of development was separation, individuation, according to Marla, and they need to begin to separate, be more with their peers, less with their families. So this was, for many people, that was really difficult. Even though for most of my clients with social anxiety, it was a breath of fresh air that they did not have to deal with the hugely stressful situation of school and general life, and they could be much more within their comfort zone. So what can make the return to routine harder for children? Well, it's a bit like a new beginning after the summer holiday, except this was a real summer holiday. Most summer holidays, you go to camp, you have go on holiday, you interact with family, and this was really constricted. So it's a huge change. For some, it's a very welcome change, and for some, it's hard, especially the last point here, the slow to warm personality, which is often goes together with social anxiety and shyness. That makes it much harder to come out of this cocoon and go back to real life. Pre-existing difficulties such as learning difficulties, separation anxiety, a lack of a match between the school and child. That is a big one. School, so pretty much most people, I would say, send to their local school, to the most convenient school, perhaps slightly according to their philosophy. But so often there isn't a good match, especially for anxious children, between the school and the child. I'll just give you one example that many anxious people have got a sensitivity to sound, and yet schools do not take that into consideration in any way. If you are sensitive to noise, that is just your problem. Schools are on the whole very noisy. And for some people, this is a difficulty that they can't overcome. It causes real distress, real physical distress and emotional distress. So I really hope that one of the results of this period of slowing down and rethinking about our priorities is that we will make schools more in touch with kids' individual needs and offer a good selection of different options for different kinds of people. What can make the return to routine harder for parents? Well, I think for parents, that uncertainty, when parents are the CEOs of their family, they are the bosses of their families, and there is so much uncertainty. What's going to happen with school? Here kids are going to school for 1 day a week or 2 days a week, staggered certain amount of time. Who's going to be at home when they come home? What's going to happen with work? Am I going to have be able to earn enough to support my family? We've got the health concerns. We're going out, meeting people, exposing ourselves when we've been so careful. Are we going to, God forbid, pay a price for that? The need to consider that new path regarding our priorities. We have our perhaps slightly changed or greatly changed priorities, and how are we going to fit that into our new life? How are we going to manage? Are we going to have to work less? We're going to have to look for a new job maybe. I have to say one thing which I remember from my kids, and I hear from a lot of parents, and it's actually very overlooked, that there is, just like kids have separation anxiety, lots of parents, when I was had my kids and I was dropping them off at schools that I didn't always feel were the best match for them, I had a hard time missing my kids. I wanted more time with my kids, and I didn't have the greatest confidence always. Sometimes I did. Sometimes the teachers in the schools were wonderful, but I didn't always have the confidence about where I was leaving my little treasures. And so missing the children can make routine harder for parents when they've had this, and I've heard this from many parents, they've had this this fraught time, but it has been quality time. New work, new financial reality, feeling vulnerable. I think that is something that all of us have felt. And going out into the real world and putting ourselves out there and feeling that vulnerability. And we can channel this to good places. And of course, this depends on the reality, what kind of reality we're meeting. Have we still got our jobs? Are our kids going to schools that they like? And what are our tendencies? Do we tend to be anxious? Do we tend to be slow to warm? So of course, it depends on who we are. Let's talk just a little bit very quickly about fears and anxieties, and then we're going to go on to tools. I want most of this to be about tools. So fears and anxiety. How do fears and anxiety express themselves both in our kids and in ourselves? Sleeping disturbances, eating irregularities, mood swings, anger, depression. Depression is something very hard to catch with children, and it's not usually that lack of energy. It's more modulates other fears that perhaps were controllable prior to corona, and now they aren't so controllable, such as fear of being alone or fear of going out with a lot of people. Maybe they have become stronger now. And encopresis, enuresis, not making it through the night without wetting your bed. So what are normal fears and anxieties, and when is it too much? Because we all feel anxiety about going back and about what kind of worlds are we going back to, and when is it normal and when is it not. So I think that the difference between what's normal and what perhaps, of course, everybody should try and build that relaxation muscle, and there are a lot of tools that I'm going to share with you now. But many of us who are feeling this anxiety can help ourselves. But sometimes we do need some external help, and that's usually depends on the degree to which we feel anxiety and fears. Is it something that we're dealing with, but we are returning to work, we are going to the supermarket, or is it causing us to be paralyzed and just not to get on with our real lives? To what degree is it interfering with our daily functioning, and to what degree is it taking over our lives? Are we scared? Is a child scared on the first day of going back to school and a bit weepy and perhaps doesn't sleep so well before going back to school, or is he in a state for a week before he's due to go back to school? So it's the degree of distress, and it's the degree of disturbance to our functioning. And I think that is the way we can distinguish between fears that are par for the course. This is an anxiety-inducing situation, which doesn't mean that we shouldn't help ourselves. What's the difference between fears and anxiety? Fear is more specific. We can be scared of a dog, we can be scared of a place with a lot of people. Anxiety is a more nebulous kind of thing, that we have this feeling of being tense and being this discomfort. We're kind of ready for something to happen, but it's not really directed towards anything. What causes us to feel fear? We'll go through this really, really quickly, and then we're going on to tools, and I hope that, you know, they'll be useful tools for you, hopefully. So we all need to feel fear. If we didn't, we would be a mess, because fear causes us to perceive and act on danger. And when we perceive danger, then our amygdala in our brain gets these signals and sends signals to the hypothalamus, which stimulates the automatic nervous system. And that causes us to have one of these three fear reactions: fight, flight, or freeze. So fight, flight are the sympathetic system, jumps into action, and freeze is the parasympathetic system, that jump into action. And so if we were to meet a lion on the street, we would run away, or we would decide to fight it if we were very brave. If we saw a snake, we might want to keep totally still in order that it won't see us, and we'll just slither past. So these are the three classic responses to danger, to perceived danger. And then our body releases the stress hormone cortisol, which affects heart rate. We pump more blood into our vital organs so that we're ready to respond. Our lungs send more oxygen, and our eyes, we have more peripheral vision to see the danger. We have a lower pain perception, and we are ready to respond either by fight, flight, or freeze to this perceived danger. Now, what we're talking about now is when that fear response is not in our best interests. When it is in our best interest, when we're running away from a lion or a car that's approaching quickly, then it is a gift from God. It is what keeps us surviving. But when we feel overly stressed, and that's actually causing us to function less well and to feel less good, then we need to learn how to calm ourselves down and how to work on our thoughts and our feelings and our body in order to feel less tense. So I'll just say a word. We're going to talk a lot about thoughts now, and we're going to jump into the tools. But thoughts can be adaptive or non-adaptive. And when they're non-adaptive and they're causing us to feel fear, perceive danger, when danger is not really there, that's when we need to learn to turn it down a little bit. I'll discuss this soon about calm or worried thoughts, what is realistic. So what tools do we have? This is one kind of self-soothing therapy that people have been using, and you know, that has its place too. How can we help ourselves? I'm going to mention a few things and then jump into some CBT, cognitive behavioral, and ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, and mindfulness techniques. But I just do want to mention a couple of things. One is physical activity. Physical activity is fabulous for lowering anxiety, and it has been proved again and again that it decreases the cortisol, the stress hormone, and it increases endorphins, which are those feel-good hormones, And that is a natural thing. And we were born to move more than we often do move, unless you're a personal trainer or something. And so, you know, I've been working on myself, and that's been fantastic. And I think most of us could work on ourselves this is something really simple we can do, which is a win-win-win. It's good for us physically, it's good for us mentally. Social support, to reach out now that we can go out more, to set up with friends, to try and talk to them, to engage with co-workers, to engage with relatives, and to get things off our chest. And that is already step one to feeling better. So how can we help ourselves to overcome fears? And we're going to go to tools. And as I said in the last slide, I'll give you a whole pile of more resources, because obviously we won't be able to cover everything. We'll just get a little tasting, but I hope it will put you on a path to delve deeper into things that you think are relevant for you. So I'm just going to make it even a little bit harder for parents, as if it wasn't bad enough. Parents have a double responsibility when it comes to anxiety, because in a way, parents have their own anxiety, they have their own lives, they have their own coping with work, finances, parenting, health, yet they also are responsible for their kids. And what can you do about it? Kids are mind readers and heart readers, and they know what we're thinking, they know what we're feeling. And so when we are very anxious, when we feel scared about sending our kids to kindergarten, they know it. They see through us straight away. So in order to help ourselves, of course, to help ourselves, but also to help our kids, we can learn how to lower our anxieties, and we learn continuously. And there are so many tools, there are so many methods of learning, and really enjoyable methods of learning. And one of my greatest pleasures is when a child comes to me for treatment, and the whole family gets a little bit of a boost, and perhaps parents do also, that they also get some help. And sometimes it's really minimal help in order for them also to lower their anxiety levels. So I'm going to just mention this one. My clients have this construct coming out of their, I don't know where, their ears. And I'm just going to mention this so that you bear this in mind for the rest of what we're going to be talking about today, which is flexibility. And this is a basic premise, particularly of dialectic behavior therapy, that it's a basic component of emotional health. And the flexibility is turning down our stress response, is adjusting to new situations, adapting to new and anxiety-provoking situations. And it often requires work. We're often hard on ourselves that, oh, we're taking this too seriously. Why can't we just calm down? But don't be hard on yourself. Really, life is complex. This point in life is complex, and self-compassion is so important to accept yourself, while at the same time working on flexibility. So I just wanted you to have this construct in mind while we're talking about the actual tools. And here we are, we're coming to the tools. So the basic kind of equation that cognitive behavioral therapy is based on, and as a result also ACT and DBT and even mindfulness to a degree, is that we have in life situations and thoughts and feelings and responses. And that is like the pattern that we experience second to second. And there's a given situation, and so many different thoughts go through our minds. And we should accept anything we think. Anything we think is acceptable, yet we can learn to moderate those thoughts also. So how we think affects how we feel, which affects how we respond. And I'm going to show you a few methods of thinking in a more relaxed way. And of course, it's just touching on these, and there's a lot more to learn, and I'm sure many of you know some of what I'm going to say, or all of what I'm going to say. But in any case, it's good to have a little bit of a refresher sometimes. So let's say the situation is returning to school, going back to school. And you could think, you're sending your son back to school. And this is on the right hand of the slide in red. So the situation for both of these parts of the slide are returning to school. And you're sending your darling little child back to school. And he's worried about it, and you're worried about it, and you think, oh my goodness, he's going to be in touch with so many people, he's going to be sick, or maybe he won't be sick, but he'll bring some symptoms back, and I have diabetes, and it's going to affect me, and you're really, really worried. And you're thinking all these worry thoughts, and then you feel worried. And then your response is you tell him again and again, don't approach friends, don't touch things, wash your hands, be sure to sit at a distance. In recess, make sure you don't go near friends, don't touch anyone. And he's going to feel that. He reads your mind, he reads your thoughts, and he's going to be tense. And then if you look at the left-hand side of this, and you're the same situation, the child is returning to school, and the situation is that he's returning to school, and you think, oh, he's going to have such a great time, he's going to see his friends. Be a little bit difficult for him to get used to it, but it'll be good. Small classes, shorter hours, it's going to be good. And you feel, as a result of these calm thoughts, you feel calm. And then you can bring him to school, and even if he's a little bit weepy, you'll send him off happily, and he will feel your calm. So these are how the thoughts, so many different thoughts go through our minds constantly, but how these thoughts can affect our feelings, which affect our response. So stage one, when we're talking about thoughts, is to notice our thoughts and to write them down or to take note of them somehow, because otherwise they're very effervescent and they just kind of, even if we notice what we think, they can just disappear and we don't remember. So I really like writing down thoughts. We have so many thoughts. We have conscious thoughts, unconscious thoughts. But one thing that we often don't realize is that thoughts are not the truth. We have thoughts which we know are not the truth. This is going to be a disaster. He's going to hate every second of going back to school. I'm never going to find another job. And we confuse, in the words of ACT, of acceptance commitment therapy. I'm going to give you those references later. Wonderful book. I recommend everybody reads. It's just a beautiful book on how to think in a kind of positive way. So you confuse with these non-adaptive, worrying thoughts. Somebody who's terrified of dogs will think dogs are so dangerous and they bite, and they always bite people. Usually when thoughts have always, they're not correct. And we can think that they are the truth, and we fuse with them, we get stuck with them. And you can learn to defuse from your thoughts, to separate from your thoughts, which is not to say don't have that thoughts. All thoughts are welcome. Welcome every single thought. But remember that it is just a thought. It is a thought. It isn't the truth. And it is one of millions we might have in one day, conscious or unconscious. On the other hand, switch off your struggle button with your thoughts. If we're forcing ourselves, don't think that way. You may not think that way. Think positively. That is just going to make that thought be with you constantly. It's like saying to a child, don't smile, don't smile. You're not allowed to smile. He's going to smile and laugh. Or if we're thinking about, don't think about ice cream, don't think about chocolate, we're going to really want to eat that chocolate. So don't struggle with the thoughts. It's okay. Any thoughts are okay. And even if we struggle, we're going to have those thoughts. That's who we are. We are complex people, and that is the richness of who we are, that we have so many thoughts and emotions. But you can diffuse from your thoughts, and you can let your thoughts go. And I'm going to just give you 2 examples, okay, of how you can do this. And I want you to try this with the thoughts that you wrote down at the beginning. you can say to yourself, and this is one of the ACT techniques, you can say to yourself, I notice that I'm thinking that. I notice I'm thinking that. I notice I'm thinking that it's going to be terrible to go back to work. I notice that I'm thinking that my kid's going to have an awful day in school. I notice that I'm thinking that I'm going to be ill if I go and start mixing with people. And that just gives you that little bit of distance between yourself and your thoughts. And it gives you a little bit of room in your mind to have other thoughts. And as I said before, calm thoughts are usually the realistic thoughts. So when we take that little bit of distance by saying, I notice that I'm thinking that, it's not, this is the truth, but I notice I'm thinking this. You can teach this to kids also. They love it when they get the hang of it. And you consider all thoughts, welcome all thoughts, but just take that little bit of distance that they're not the truth. If you consider the thoughts that you wrote down at the beginning and just put that preface, I notice that I'm thinking that school's going to be awful. I notice that I'm thinking that I'm not going to be earning enough to support my family, and see what that does to you. I want to give you another ACT metaphor, which I love. I love it, and I love all these nature metaphors also. And there's so many. And if you read this, The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris, then you will have a lot more techniques. But one of them is to imagine. Metaphors are wonderful also, and they broaden our perspective. So you can imagine that thoughts are like leaves on a tree, and leaves on a tree fall, and they move on. And you can imagine your thoughts are these leaves on the tree, and you can let your thought, your worried, non-adaptive thought, fall and land in the stream and just be pulled gently along by the current downstream. And you can make a bit more room for your other thoughts. That thought is still there. That leaf is there. It's just a little bit down the stream, and it's gentle. It's non-aggressive. It's accepting that thought too, but just saying, okay, you can go. Really important to be aware of feelings, to be aware of your feelings and your kids' feelings. And this is, speak about the feelings during and after events, and also before. And you can also learn about feelings, read books. There are lovely books. I'm going to give you a few references at the end of books that are good for exploring kids' feelings. One of the books that I love, it's the easiest, peasiest book you could imagine, is How to Talk So Children Can Listen by Faber and Maislish. And this just helps you to reflect to children what they are thinking. And we need to do it to ourselves also. Every feeling is legitimate. No such thing as stop being angry, stop being jealous. A feeling is legitimate. The question is, what do you do with the feeling? Do you learn to regulate the feeling? Can you learn how to calm down and let go? And to learn what to do with feelings and how to handle feelings. So one way, a very wonderful way, is relaxation and guided imagery. And I'm going to give you a few YouTube references at the end for 5 minutes towards relaxation and calming yourself. So the first thing we can do is relax the body, and there are many different ways, but one way is just tightening your body, going through your body, your hands, your toes. Try this as I'm speaking. Your eyes, your shoulders, your forehead, and then relaxing them and feeling like you're just a wet rag. No tension anymore. And you do that one more time. Tense up all your body and relax, and just feel that state of relaxation. You can also relax through breathing. And this can just be taking a couple of deep breaths and noticing the breath, perhaps focusing on your on the breath going in through your nose and going down to your stomach and then going out through your lips, and feeling how it's slightly warmer when it goes out. And our breath is always with us from the moment we're born. It's that unnoticed, unpaid attention to part of us, which we only pay attention to really usually when it goes wrong. But we can always learn from it. We can learn to gain strength, to send a nice dose of oxygen to our brain, to our body, and again to let go of those thoughts, of those feelings, of those tensions. And then the guided imagery, and I'm going to give you a couple of these at the end for you to listen to in your spare time whenever it's useful. It's basically first relaxing your body, relax through a few deep breaths, and then remember a calm and relaxing place that we have been to, and just experience it in your imagination with all of your senses, your sight, your hearing, the smell, touch, and imagine you're there. And then I like to take a hypnosis technique where when you're in that calm place, after relaxing, you just make yourself a button which you can press, and it takes you to that place, and then you feel that relaxation, and you can have that button with you when you're feeling very tense. So then we've got mindfulness. Mindfulness for kids, this is from Kung Fu Panda, and this is what the master says to the panda. Great film, by the way. Another great film is Inside Out for kids and adults to recognize different emotions. Yesterday's history, today, tomorrow's a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So yesterday, what can we do with yesterday? It's done. We can feel guilty, we can obsess about it, but it's done. I haven't used my time well enough during lockdown. Yeah, nobody has. Tomorrow's a mystery. Who knows what's going to be? But now, that is all we have. Today is a gift. And this moment, this very moment where I'm talking to you and you're listening, that's all we have. And then we're going to have another moment. And if we make the most of every moment, then we are going to have a full and beautiful and rich life. And it's hard to do, but it is a muscle that you can develop. And Jon Kabat-Zinn is the master of mindfulness. I love him. He's got tons of YouTubes, and I feel that every word is a gem that he speaks. And based on his mindfulness-based stress-reducing 8-week course, which can do wonders, which I think has saved me. It can save many, many people when you're feeling too uptight, too tense, and to learn skills for just calming down. It's an 8-week course, and there's a free version online in several languages, Spanish, English, amongst other languages. Really highly recommended. And I'm going to give you that resource soon. There's also focus and attention, where you can focus on yourself, and this is a little bit of obsessive thinking. If I walk into that room, everybody's going to be looking at me, and I'm going to feel very self-conscious. That's a typical social anxiety. Or we can focus on the outside world. We can focus on what's going on outside of us, of that tree over there, or the breeze, or what the teacher's wearing, or have the kids changed in my class. So we can gain this focus and attention externally as opposed to internally. Meditations, which you can find on Jon Kabat-Zinn and the Palouse Mindfulness, and also I'm going to give you 2 apps at the end where it's for children and adults. They're 5-minute meditations. You've also got longer ones, but 5-minute meditations for all different kinds of situations, for examination anxiety, sleep anxiety. There isn't anything for coming out of pandemic anxieties, but you can find really great meditations. And breathing, which can focus on the current moment. I'm going to quickly just mention this. We don't have time to go into this because we're supposed to finish in 5 minutes, and we will, and we'll have time for questions. Take a look on YouTube at the 9 Attitudes of Mindfulness of Jon Kabat-Zinn. I think they're a gem. And I think people who listen to them can't not take some wisdom out of them. Each one is about 3 to 5 minutes long. I'll just give you one example, beginner's mind. Sometimes we're so fraught with what was or what will be that we can't see what's in front of us. Take our kids. Sometimes they can be annoying. And sometimes we feel so annoyed. They never clean their rooms, and how they embarrassed me in the queue for the bank just now. If we could just erase all of that and see them, how beautiful they are, how talented they are. Let's start again from now. That beginner's mind is a fantastic tool, as is letting go, not holding on to grudges, to anger, to feelings that can wear us down. So I totally recommend these. I'm going to tell you the mountain meditation. It's my favorite meditation. I'll really quickly, in 2 minutes, I'll describe it to you, but you'll be able to listen to it on my YouTube channel. Mountain meditation is 5 minutes to self-empowerment and calm, and it's basically thinking of this mountain. And a mountain is made of stone, and it's strong, and it is beautiful, and it is a host for such beauty and such riches, and stones and flowers and animals, and sometimes it has to go through difficult situations such as snow, rain, thunder, lightning. But it is made of stone. It can withstand it. It has endurance. And no matter what happens, it is strong. And we are mountains. We're made so strong. We have resilience, and we can develop that resilience. And even when we go through difficult times, and perhaps we don't always respond exactly as we would like to, we are beautiful. Be kind to yourself. Be appreciative of yourself. You're a unique creation. So bear that in mind at all times. Anyway, I love this mountain meditation. I recommend it. And this is the final thing really that you can do before I give you these resources. What I do before, during, and after the event. So let's talk about before. With kids and with yourselves, you can talk about your thoughts, what's going on through your mind. It's helpful to talk to kids about what they're thinking about going back to school, what's bothering them, what they're looking forward to. Talk about feelings, and then maybe you can help them with what to expect. I think that's so often the case with kids. We don't realize they have no idea what to expect, and helping them understand what to expect often lowers the level of anxiety. And then there are coping tools that we discussed briefly now to live the moment, to breathe, to think positive thoughts, and to imagine also beforehand, to imagine what is going to be and kind of walk through the future situation. Think about what difficulties there could be and what pleasures there could be too. During, particularly with kids, accompany and assist. Perhaps you need to take your kid to school and stay with them for a bit. Perhaps you need a gradual return to normal. This is true of adults also. With kids, perhaps you need to explain to the teacher all the wisdom that you have gained about your child after your 2 months together with him or her. Breathe during, and to try and think realistic and calm thoughts and focus on the here and now. And this is the last slide, and then I'll go on and give you the resources, and I'll open it up to questions. Try to have open communication with the teacher and the school. We've learned so much about our kids, and parents are the experts of their kids, and even more so now, and don't let anybody ever make you feel otherwise. And consider what you've learned and share what you've learned with the staff, with a teacher, and ideally work together with them. We can also learn from the school staff. We can learn what their perceptions are. Maybe think together about priorities. Maybe the learning is less important than actually feeling comfortable. Maybe your child should be in the group together with other children and who are their good friends, and not with random group of friends. Maybe they need to sit nearby their good friend. So maybe they need to be with their current teacher and not with somebody new who's taking over, because it's divided into small groups. So contact your teacher, preferably talk to them about these points before school goes back, because in my experience, teachers have been overwhelmed once school returns. So let's learn from this time to develop our external, that we've had time to develop our external and internal worlds. And let's hopefully make a calmer, slower, more accepting of ourselves and others, and more considerate world. And hopefully we'll have a calmer world with less anxiety and more enjoying life. And hopefully we'll come out of this with a lot of gains. So here are some resources that I've put together for you, and I'm going to put the link to the recording on my Facebook page. So if you look Selective Mutism Ruth Perednik Facebook, you'll find me, and I'll put the link to this recording then there in a couple of days. And then if you would like to have another look, you can do. Books, these are books that I love. Russ Harris, The Happiness Trap, easy read, full of ways to feel calmer and have more adaptive thoughts and feelings, and much more self-compassion. Faber and Maislish, How to Talk So Children Will Listen. Chaim Omer, Parental Presence, Reclaiming a Leadership Role in Building and Bringing Up Our Children. I love that book. And then there's by Lebowitz and Omer, Treating Childhood and Adolescent Anxiety. This is a book that I just love, a kid's book about generosity and about happiness. Carol McLeod, Have You Filled a Bucket Today? If you haven't read that, read it. And there are many different books about emotions, children's emotions, look for them. The apps, 3 apps, Headspace and Smiling Mind, free apps with a lot of different tools for calming down. And they can be really short tools. I find kids love particularly Headspace. This is the link at the bottom, Paloo's Mindfulness, for the 8-week free online course for mindfulness. It's a wonderful resource. And that is basically it.